Good evening. And I do not say that as a habit, as a string of words we pass across a threshold. Good evening is a test, and right now you can feel whether it is merely a sound in the air or a recognition in the heart. You were in this room saying good evening, and I was in this room hearing it. And together we were either acknowledging one life present here and now, or we were each pushing a little greeting out of our private corners. You see the difference immediately. Spiritual life is not something we add to our days like a new belief or another phrase to polish. It is an atmosphere. And you can know the atmosphere of a room as surely as you know fresh air from a closed cellar. So it is that I ask you to notice, not to remember, not to compare with last week, but to notice. Are we together? When we said good evening, did something in you relax and say, yes, I am at home? Or did something brace and hold itself apart? This is not for condemnation. This is our instrument panel. It tells us whether we are simply talking about abiding or abiding. Now tonight we are not piling up doctrines. We are not going to leave here heavier with spiritual furniture. We are, instead, going to find the hidden proof of abiding that shows up before it shows up anywhere else. Right here, in our relations, in the tone with which we meet each other, in the way a greeting either includes or excludes. And I want you to test everything I say by this experience, not by memory. If a word lands and the room grows quieter in you, if your breath deepens a shade, if a strain you were not naming lets go, that is the only kind of knowing we are after. If nothing like that occurs, set the word aside. You see, when we are together, a current runs. We don't make it. It is not whipped up by enthusiasm or held by agreement on ideas. It is the normal feel of one presence recognized. And you know it because the mind stops trying to posture, to defend, to prepare its next sentence. You find yourself simply here. The simple good in the evening is enough. This is abiding as an actuality, not a theory. So let our good evening be the barometer with which we begin, not to pass or fail, but to become honest. If there is any sense of apartness, we have our work to find. If there is a hint of togetherness, we have our doorway. And our work tonight is to live in that doorway. Until good evening is not a custom, but a recognition that the One is present. And because the One is present, we are present, together. You feel that? Then we can proceed. Now, if we are honest in this atmosphere, we can say a thing that clarifies the entire evening, a thing that does not flatter the mind. If I can injure you in my thought, I am not abiding. If I can belittle you, resent you, condemn you, compete with you, or secretly live against you in the hidden corridors of consciousness, I have stepped outside the one life, regardless of what hymns I sing or what phrases I frame. That lands, and it should. Because we have all known moments of sweet talk about God while nursing an edge against a brother. And that is precisely why this proof is hidden. It hides behind our words. It hides behind our moods. It hides behind a gentle voice that is still carrying a little knife inside. You see, we often grade our abiding by the surface. How peaceful I feel. How uplifted my language sounds. How sincere I appear. But oneness does not register itself by poetry. It registers as a moral incapacity. When I am abiding, I find I cannot injure you, even mentally. The spring that feeds sarcasm is dry. The reservoir out of which contempt rises is not there. I do not try to be nice. I discover there is no appetite for harm. That is why I say, check not your phrases. Check your thought tone toward the next face you meet. And so we have a simple, practical instrument panel. Before you speak, before you post, before you advise, before you correct, before you help, notice what is moving. Is it oneness recognizing its own? Or is it opposition dressing in helpful clothing? Are you coming to set a brother straight? Or are you coming because there is no other to oppose, and therefore only the one presence to witness? Now this is not to create a new scruple, not to make you frightened of your own thoughts. No, it is to restore honesty to our practice. If there is any againstness, we are alerted. I am outside. And the work then is not to perfect the argument. The work is to return until the argument dissolves in the presence. And where will this test present itself? Not on retreat alone, not in a cathedral glow, but at the kitchen table, where the same remark has stung you 100 times. In traffic, when the horn slices your quiet. In business, when terms tighten and someone seems to press on your throat. In family strain, where history rehearses itself and the mind is quick to pick its old side. There the hidden proof becomes visible. Do I still have a private life that lives against you, even if my lips are silent? If so, I know where I am, not abiding. And if, right there, a gentleness that is not sentiment rises, a steadiness without spike, a clarity without contempt, then I know where I am, under the government of the One. So test it now and test it later, not for shame, but for direction. The quickest evidence of abiding is never what I say about God. It is whether I can still hold anyone as against me in consciousness. If I can, I have work to do. If I cannot, we may proceed, because the room is one. You feel that? Then let us go on in that light. Now, if the test is this simple, if the sign is whether I can still hold you as against me, then our next question is just as simple, and it must be asked until it yields light. Who is this me? What is this me that can be injured? And who is this you that I blame, resist, correct, and carry around in private argument? Let us not hurry past it. Let us sit with the words. Me. You. What do they mean as we are using them when we feel the heat of resentment? If I say, you have hurt me, I have already constructed a universe of two powers. I have granted to a you a life separate from life, a mind separate from mind, the ability to invade and diminish an entity I am calling me. So, at the root of resentment, there is not merely a feeling. There is theology. There is metaphysics. Two lives, two minds, two powers in collision. And yet, the Christ revelation does not speak this way. I live, yet not I. Then who? The Father within me doeth the works. I can of mine own self do nothing. Then where is this self I am defending? Who is this He? What is this He? He within me, greater than he that is in the world. You see where the pronouns take us? If I accept them as the Master uses them, the stage has room for one life alone, performing itself as many, yet not divided against itself. Now watch the secret impulse behind an injuring thought. The personal I, hungry to be something, must have an opposite. Without an adversary, it thins, it loses outline, it cannot feel its separate throb. So the ego mind manufactures a you in consciousness, an object, a foil, a problem, so that the me may pulse and preen and protest. Injury in thought is not about you at all. It is the self-protection of this little manufactured me, propping up its borders with accusation. And every time I indulge it, I certify the lie of two. But if I stand still a moment and ask, very softly, who is this me I am guarding? Where does it begin? Where does it end? Can it live an instant apart from the breathing of the one? And who is this you outside my life, outside myself? I find an odd thing begins. The edges blur. The heat cools. The scriptural word turns operative. I can of mine own self do nothing. There is no private self to be injured, and there is no foreign self to be blamed. The Father within doeth the works, including the seeing, the relating, the correcting when correction is due. The Father, the Father, the Father. So the whole weight of our practice is to unmask the pronoun every time hostility flares. Is this the I competing for oxygen? Is this the you I must keep outside to feel real? Or is there, beneath the noise, an I am that neither injures nor is injured? When that I am is touched, the againstness collapses for lack of a second pole. You discover, not by thinking it, but by finding it, that there is only one self here, beholding itself in every face. And in that beholding, the appetite to harm is gone, because the subject and object of harm have been seen to be the same. That is how you know where you are, not by speech, but by pronouns redeemed. Now, having unmasked the pronoun, we must draw a line. And this line is not against a person, but against a method that will keep you circling in the mental plane. Just walking around and saying, God is love, is really going to do nothing for you if it remains a sentence you repeat to manage your mood. You know this, of course. A mind can be stilled by suggestion. A feeling can be blunted by a phrase. You can coach yourself into a polite tone and a civil nod. But that is not abiding, and that is not realization. That is mental management. Useful sometimes, yes, like a bandage, but it does not change the life that bleeds beneath it. So we say it plainly. Suppressing anger is not the same as seeing that there is no other to strike in consciousness. If I grit my teeth and smile, and if behind the teeth the silent indictment continues, you are wrong, I am right, I am tolerating you, I have not moved an inch toward oneness. If I forgive while quietly narrating how guilty you are and how high I rise above it, that is not forgiveness. That is spiritual vanity wearing a halo of patience. If I quote scripture in order to stand taller than you, I have made the word a weapon, and the me who wields it is the same little me we just exposed. You see? There are counterfeits we all know. The soft voice that conceals a hard verdict. The courteous email crafted over an inner trial. The prayer spoken as a strategy to control an outcome or a person. The private fantasy of winning the argument while publicly yielding. All of these belong to the realm of mental control. Hypnotism, suggestion, affirmation, niceness, call them what you will. They can produce effects, yes. They can slow a pulse, they can quiet a room. But they will never reveal identity. They will never disclose the I that is the I of you. What then is the proof that we have left the mental and touched the real? A release comes. Not a victory over anger, not a lid fastened on passion, but an easing from the inside, as if the spring that fed the againstness had been turned off at its source. You find you cannot sustain the hostile thought, not because you are resisting it, listen now, but because something seen makes it unreal to you. The picture has lost a character. There is no second for the first to push against. The appetite to injure is absent, not suppressed. The Father within doeth the seeing. The Father, the Father, the Father. And here is how you know. The body lets out a breath you did not command. The mind stops rehearsing its lines. The need to explain yourself recedes. The room grows simple. You are not trying to be kind. Kindness is natural as light from a window. You are not trying to be safe. There is nothing to defend. You are not trying to forgive. There is no account to settle. This is the experiential criterion, and without it, do not trust your phrases. With it, you may say nothing at all, and yet be more truly joined than 1,000 courteous speeches could make you. So let us settle this. Oneness is not achieved by managing emotion. It is realized, and the realization dissolves the impulse to injure. Until that release is felt, we are still turning the dials of mind. When it is felt, the government is already shifting off the little shoulder, and relationship begins to be lived from the one rather than arranged by the many. You feel the difference. Then we can go on. Now, here is the how, and I want you to hear it not as a trick, but as a way to let the Father within come to the surface. I call this contemplative meditation. It is not reading widely. It is not collecting truths. It is taking one living line and dwelling with it. Not to persuade the mind, but to wait upon the presence until, all of a sudden, a release comes within. One line. Ponder it. Contemplate it. Let it enter and turn you as the tide turns the shore. What line? Choose one that answers the very point at issue. Christ is my life. And then sit with it. What is this Christ? Where is this life? Is it personal? Is it separate? If Christ is my life, how many lives are there in this room? I and my Father are one. Who is this I? Who is this Father? Where is the separation I am defending? There is one self. One self, then whom am I against? To whom could I do harm? Inasmuch as ye have done it unto the least of these, ye have done it unto me. Unto me. Who is this me that receives every act? You see how the pronouns open? You do not grind them. You linger. You listen. You let them reveal themselves. The Father. The Father. The Father. How long? Not by the clock. You continue until a change occurs that you do not engineer. A breath lets out. A softness appears where the jaw was set. The need to position yourself drops 2 inches and then disappears. That is the release. When it comes, stop. Do not repeat the sentence to hammer it into the brain. Do not decorate it. Get up and go about your business, because in that moment the government is already shifting, and you are not trying to be one. You are resting as it. You will find that you can meet the very person whose name used to tighten your chest, and there is no rehearsal of injury, no inner brief to prosecute. The appetite to injure is simply not present. If the release does not come, do not worry the mind. Close the book, keep still outwardly, and if you must meet the circumstance, meet it with as few words as love requires. Then return. 2 hours later. 3, 4, 5 hours later if need be. Take the same line or another that comes alive to you, and sit again, reading or hearing and then pondering, until the inner click, the easing, the yes appears. This is not compulsion. This is fidelity. Each return is an act of trust that there is a presence and a power within you that does the seeing and the relating. And here is your practical sign. After the release, you are not policing your tone. You are not staging kindness. You find you cannot think the old against thought. It has nowhere to land. You go into the same office, the same kitchen, the same meeting, and you discover the atmosphere has changed because you have changed your pronoun. Not my life, his life. Not two selves, one self. Not I doing, but the Father within doing the works. Then love is not a sentiment. It is a law of identity operating as you. And you rest. Now, when that release comes, notice the first mercy that arrives. The government is not on your shoulder. You are not carrying your image in both hands like a fragile vase. You are not guarding your reputation like a fence in a storm. You are not arranging outcomes, preloading answers, sharpening a little spear of wit to keep yourself safe. Something within says, quietly but with authority, the government is on his shoulder. And you feel it, not as an idea, but as a lightness just behind the eyes, as a spine that no longer needs armor, as a breath that goes all the way out and then returns of its own accord. Apply it where life is lived, in relationship. The old impulse was to steer how they see you, to make them agree, to win the hour so that your me can breathe. The old impulse was to fix them before you can feel safe, to correct their tones and tune their faces, to insist that your peace depends on their rearrangement. When the release is present, that project drops. You discover you can meet a brother or a sister without issuing private instructions to the universe. You can let them be, and you can be. And the space between you is not a battlefield to be managed. It is a room the Father fills. Now listen carefully. This is not passivity. This is a change of operator. I can of mine own self do nothing. Nothing wise, nothing loving, nothing that endures. The Father within me doeth the works. The Father within me doeth the speaking when speech is love. The Father within me doeth the listening when silence is the true answer. The Father within me doeth the correcting when correction is mercy. The Father within me doeth the holding of the tongue when quiet is the only bridge. The Father, the Father, the Father. So it is that you are not absent. You are finally present, because the personal sense has stepped down from the bench, and the Christ has taken the case. How do you know this has begun? The inner courtroom is closed. The mind stops drafting its summations at 3 in the morning. There is no rehearsal of the clever line you will deliver. The heart is not braced. You are not looking for allies to confirm your outrage. Instead, there is a clean floor where the argument used to be. You stand there unarmed and unafraid, and you find an odd strength, a quiet clarity rising that does not belong to opinion. It belongs to presence. Then relationship becomes rest. You are not trying to sell yourself, defend yourself, or rescue yourself by adjusting another soul. You are not hunting for the winning angle. There is no contest to win. You are content to behold, to witness what the One is being here. And because the One is being himself as both, the atmosphere does the work. That is abiding, recognized as relief. The government is on his shoulder, and you are free to be the transparency through which he relates, he speaks, he loves. You see? And when that is so, nothing is forced, and nothing is missing. Now, notice where this relief shows itself first. Perception changes before conduct changes, and conduct follows it as naturally as day follows dawn. At the grosser level, we meet bodies first. We register faces, ages, clothes, genders. We meet roles and histories. The one who said that, the one who did this, the one I must watch. And the mind strings a story like beads. And with story must come heroes and villains, friends and threats. You know this rhythm. When you live in the body and story, you must keep an enemy somewhere, for the me needs a foil to stay vivid. But as the release of abiding begins to work, the first refinement is so simple you might overlook it. You do not quickly note their bodies. You note the eyes. The eyes come forward, not as windows to a drama, but as little lanterns you cannot quite explain. You begin to look through the costume of role and see something that does not participate in yesterday's quarrel. Already the heat of againstness cools, because the eyes say, "There is more here than your file on me." Then another step, and it is not imagination. It is perception cleaned. You become aware of an atmosphere. I do not mean temperament. I do not mean mood. I mean a presence that is not manufactured by their smile or their frown. You could stand near them and feel it, or sit in silence and be aware of it before a word is spoken. You find you are less occupied with their outline and more with a quality that presses through the outline. And here, opposition begins to lose its scaffolding, because the atmosphere is not personal. It is not theirs against mine. It is the one being itself as this meeting. And then sometimes, do not reach for it, simply notice. There comes a moment, a flash, when the whole picture that burdened you fades. Their body, your body, the tense file, the practiced defense, all of it recedes as if a curtain were drawn, and there is a light. Not a bulb, not fireworks, an inner rightness that has the feel of light. In that instant, everything is all right. The argument has no oxygen. The me has no bench to sit on. The you has no box to stand in. This is what our mystics called transfiguration. It is not rare. It is simply rare that we let ourselves rise to where it is visible. Now, so long as you live at the level of personal narrative, you are compelled to prosecute and defend, because narrative demands contrast. But when perception rises, eyes, then atmosphere, then that shining, for whom would you sharpen the spear? Whom would you injure? The appetite is gone, not suppressed, because the subject and object of harm have been seen as one. The Father within me doeth the seeing. The Father within me doeth the recognizing. And because he sees himself, love becomes the law of identity, not an effort. So it is that you can be in the same room with the same history, and the enemy is missing. Not defeated, missing. You are left with one presence, and you find yourself unable to live against anyone, because there is no one outside your own life to be against. You see? And when that is your way of seeing, conduct takes care of itself. Words soften without strategy. Boundaries clarify without contempt. And before any act, perception has already loved. Now we take a word from the Master, and do not let it pass as poetry. Inasmuch as ye have done it unto the least of these, my brethren, ye have done it unto me. Hear it again. Inasmuch as ye have done it unto the least of these, unto me. Who is this me? What is this me? If it is a person over there, a figure to be flattered and feared, then we still have two. But the Christ does not speak as a separated object of homage. The Christ speaks as the I that is the life of you and the life of the one beside you. I live, yet not I. Christ liveth in me. So when the Master says, unto me, he is revealing a law of identity. There is one self here, receiving every act we call toward another. Now if that is seen, the golden rule stops being advice for well-behaved people and becomes mechanics. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Why? Because there are no others in being. There is only the one being itself as all. So every thought, every tone, every gesture that we seem to send over there moves within the one life and returns not as punishment from a ruler on a throne, but as the movement of a single body feeling its own touch. You see? If I wrong you, whom do I wrong? Myself. If I bless you, whom do I bless? Myself. He wasn't advising. He was describing how love operates when two have been seen as one. Make it plain. Condemnation. What is it? It is the mind striking at its own body and asking why the hand aches. Gossip. What is it? It is the tongue reporting contempt to the ear of its own self and wondering why the heart trembles later in the night. Sarcasm. The little spear we polish. What is it? It is the self pricking its own peace to feel superior for a moment and paying for it with estrangement. Silent contempt. No words at all. What is it? It is the atmosphere we poison and then breathe back. These are not sins awaiting a cosmic penalty. They are self-injuries that witness to a belief in two. Where there is one self realized, these impulses cannot find an object to feed on. And here is your hidden proof again, the same we have been using. If you cannot hold a person in contempt, if the mind tries to rehearse the old indictment and finds the script dissolved, if the tongue rises to strike and discovers it has nothing to say but truth in love, it is not because you have become morally athletic. It is because consciousness has shifted into Christ awareness. The Father within me doeth the seeing, and because he beholds only himself, the appetite to injure disappears. The government is on his shoulder, and you are relieved of playing judge over your own life. So practice the verse as a doorway, not a slogan. Sit with it. Unto me. Who is this me in my brother? Who is this me in my critic, in the clerk, in the child, in the one I fear? Linger until the release comes, and then rise. You will find you cannot live against anyone without feeling the bruise in your own being. And you will find, just as surely, that every quiet act of regard returns as ease. Not advice, law. Not morality, identity. Inasmuch as, unto me. You feel that? Then let the me do the works. Now let us come down to the place where most of our suffering is manufactured. Invisibly, politely, respectably. The mind builds a courtroom. A bench appears. And who takes the bench? I do. A witness box appears. And whom do I place in it? A spouse, a parent, a co-worker, a politician, a stranger who cut in line. The prosecution begins with opening statements at the kitchen sink. Exhibits are entered while driving alone. Cross-examination happens at 3 a.m, and closing arguments are delivered in the shower. No sound passes our lips, and yet the gavel drips with verdicts. Guilty. 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 You know this room. Every time the mind replays the scene to prove a point, the courtroom is in session. What is the cost? First, atmosphere hardens. The soft possibility of seeing afresh is sealed under glass, because I have secured a narrative and must now defend it. Second, conflict becomes inevitable, because I can only meet the one I have already condemned as the mask I made for them. Even if I say nothing, I am radiating a prosecution, and the moment light enters the actual meeting, my set jaw tells on me. Most of all, while the trial proceeds, I am outside the sanctuary of oneness. The presence cannot be recognized in a room I am filling with evidence. The Father does not sit on a bench I have seized. You see, the very act of proving a case proves separation. Now here is the pivot, and it is as simple as honesty. The instant you notice the courtroom, do not improve your argument. Do not polish your righteous phrasing. Do not summon new witnesses from old memories. Close the brief. Turn within and say very quietly, Father, reveal thyself here. Who is this he? What is this he? The Father within me doeth the seeing. I can of mine own self do nothing, especially not try this case without breaking my own heart. Then wait. Read, if you need a handhold, one line, until a release comes. Not a victory, a release. The Father, the Father, the Father. You will recognize the change, because hostility cannot be sustained in that felt presence. The witness you had staged as a villain is no longer an object. The edges blur. The heat no longer has a place to land. The case collapses, not because you have lost your standards, but because you have lost the illusion of two. The need to win dissolves. The need to see rightly begins. You find no taste for indictment. Instead, a clean clarity appears, sometimes to speak, sometimes to be silent, sometimes to change a plan, sometimes to hold a line, but without the spike of contempt that always poisoned your action before. And let us not misuse this. Abiding is not a blanket thrown over wrongdoing. This is not looking at harm and calling it good. This is a change of consciousness before response, so that response is clean, proportionate, and guided. When the courtroom is closed and the presence is recognized, you may correct, you may set a boundary, you may say no, but you cannot prosecute a brother as alien. You are moved to address an appearance within your own life. That is the difference. No thunder of self-righteousness, no inward strut, only the Father within doing the works. So practice this applied self-examination a dozen times a day. The mind posts the docket. You see it and lay it down. Father, reveal thyself here. Wait for the easing. When it comes, the trial is over, because separation cannot be proven in the presence. Then live from that acquittal. You are no longer judge and prosecutor. You are witness to the one, and the room changes. You feel that? Then we can go on. Now, when the courtroom is closed and the presence is felt, a fear often rises, and we must meet it cleanly. You say, if I drop my case, won't I become a doormat? No. Oneness does not erase backbone. It erases hatred. It removes the acid, not the bone. It means no personal malice, no mental violence, no quiet wish to humiliate. It does not mean you will not say no. It means you will not stab with your no. It does not mean you will not walk away. It means you will not slam the door in order to hear it bang. You see the distinction? Contempt is gone. Clarity remains. Now, the difference between resistance and discernment must be remembered, or you will slip back into managing people for your peace. Resistance is the personal me bracing against a you to win. Discernment is the Father within, revealing what belongs and what does not, and then doing the works of truth. From discernment, you may say, "No, thank you. This ends here." You may say, "I will not sign that." You may leave a room, change a lock, make a report, enforce a policy. But the movement is not to punish, it is to reveal order. Let your yea be yea, and your nay, nay, spoken from the one, not thrown like a stone from the many. Here are your practical indicators. Againstness tastes hot. Abiding tastes clean. Againstness rehearses speeches at red lights. Abiding has nothing to rehearse. Againstness measures itself by winning. Abiding measures nothing and speaks when speech is love. Againstness sharpens tone and seeks an audience. Abiding stays low and needs no witness. Againstness feels the spike of contempt and the throb of self-importance. Abiding moves like water, clear, proportionate, without swagger. If you feel the heat, you are prosecuting again. If you feel the quiet, you are letting the presence order the moment. So take this internal question as a lamp before any act. Am I trying to injure? Or am I letting the Father within do the works of truth? Ask it softly. If you cannot speak without inner violence, say nothing. Return. Father, reveal thyself here. Who is this he? What is this he? Wait until the release comes. Then act. One sentence, one step, without theater. Apply it at the desk, at the table, in the hall. You can correct an error without condemning a soul. You can set a boundary without building a wall. You can report a harm as an act of mercy to the whole, not as a shot across an enemy's bow. And when the Father within does the relating, the atmosphere stays breathable. Even a hard word lands without poison. The government is on his shoulder. The me is not straining to manage outcomes. So it is that abiding removes contempt, not clarity. You can be firm without being against. You can be exact without being cruel. You can be unmovable where truth is required, and yet inwardly undefended. The Father, the Father, the Father. Then love is not a mood. It is identity doing its own housekeeping. And you rest, even in conflict, because there is no one outside your own life to defeat, only the one to reveal. You feel that? Then let that one do the works. Now we come to the way this is lived tomorrow morning, and again at noon, and again at 5. Abiding is not a peak to be defended. It is a rhythm to be returned to. The mind will offer you an enemy. New costume, same impulse. You do not argue with the mind. You do not punish the mind. You recognize the offer and you return. That is the work, a returning. Not once, but as many times as love asks, until oneness is no longer a glimpse, but the atmosphere in which you wake and move. So here is your little loop, your daily practice, carried in the pocket of consciousness. First, pause. A heat rises. A sentence forms sharp on the tongue. The old courtroom rustles its papers. Pause. Second, recognize the impulse. I am trying to injure in thought. Do not condemn yourself for noticing. The noticing is already light entering the room. Third, become still. Even 10 seconds will do. Fourth, take one living line. Christ is my life. I and the Father are one. Inasmuch as ye have done it unto the least of these, ye have done it unto me. The Father within me doeth the works. Fifth, contemplate it, reading or hearing, and then pondering. Who is this I? Who is this Father? Unto me, who is this me? Until a release comes. Sixth, when the easing appears, the breath lets out, the jaw softens, the appetite to strike cannot find its target. Stop and live. Then move on with the task at hand, without theater, without rehearsal. If the release does not come, do not grind the statement into the brain, and do not scold the heart. Close the book of argument. Use as few words as love requires in the moment, and return later, an hour, 3, 5. Take the same line or a fresh one, and sit again. Fidelity, not strain. Consistency, not compulsion. Each gentle returning polishes the lens. Each glimpse of the one weakens the old reflex to divide. You will find, without making vows and without policing your tone, that certain habits begin to fall off because there is nothing left in you to feed them. Harsh speech loses its flavor. The relish for criticism goes flat on the tongue. Nasty stories feel heavy. You cannot carry them. The sport of judgment grows boring. Emails get shorter and cleaner. The face relaxes. Laughter loses its bite and keeps its joy. These are not moral achievements. They are the byproducts of elevation. Where there are not two, there is nothing to strike. And where there is nothing to strike, the hand opens. Set small bells for yourself if you like. Before a call, after a meeting, at the sink, at the door. Not rituals to please a God far off, but gentle turnings to the Father within who does the works. 30 seconds, 3 minutes. It is not the clock that matters. It is the felt release and the relief that follows that tells you consciousness has shifted. The government is on his shoulder again. And as this returning becomes your way, you will notice whole days go by without an enemy to animate the mind. Not because the world has been improved into your likeness, but because you are living from the one. The Father, the Father, the Father. And love, as law, keeps house through you while you rest in the quiet that does not need an opponent to be itself. You see? Then let that quiet do the works. Now let us seal this, not as poetry, not as a fine thought to admire, but as identity to be lived. I am that. Hear it rightly, not I, this person, am that other person. No, I am that. The one self being itself as you, as me, as the passerby, as the critic, as the friend, as the stranger. Who is this I? What is this I? Not the personal bundle, not the story maker, the I that said, before Abraham was, I am. When that I is recognized as the life of me and the life of you, then the pronouns lose their fight. The me that must be protected, the you that must be blamed, where are they? Melted in the one. You see? Then the only honest way to live is to conduct myself as if I were the I of you, because I am. Make the conclusion unavoidable, and do not sidestep it with niceness. If there is one self, then there is no moral extra credit for loving. There is only sanity. If I speak to you, I address my own life. If I restrain an impulse, I spare my own heart. If I correct an error, I cleanse my own atmosphere. And if I can injure you in my thought, if I can rehearse the little thorn, roll the eye in private, savor the smart line, nurse a bruise until it births a verdict, I am not abiding. That is the proof. Not whether I can talk spiritual, but whether I can no longer find an against to animate my mind. So here is your simple test for this week. Watch thought. The first sign that you have left the sanctuary is the wish to injure, even silently, even as a private sport. When you notice it, do not moralize. Recognize you have stepped out into two and return. And you know the way to return. Take one passage. 1. I and my Father are one. Christ is my life. Inasmuch as ye have done it unto the least of these, ye have done it unto me. The Father within me doeth the works. Sit with it, reading or hearing, and then pondering. Who is this I? Who is this Father? Who is this me receiving every act? Do not grind. Do not force. Continue until a release comes, an easing, a breath, a dropping of the inner armor. Then stop and live. Let the Father within do the relating. If the easing does not appear, close the book of argument. Use as few words as love requires, and return later. Fidelity, not strain. Consistency, not compulsion. The government is on His shoulder, not on yours. So we close in quiet authority, not with a vow, but with identity. Go out and conduct yourself as if you were the I of each one you meet. At the sink, at the desk, on the street, in the hard room and in the easy one. Because you are. And as you do, you will find it becomes impossible to live against anyone. The appetite cannot find a target. The mind has no bench to sit on. The hand opens. Then love is not a sentiment. It is the law of who you are, operating effortlessly. The Father, the Father, the Father. Rest there, and let that one do the works. You see? Then live.